Like, we don't know how it got there. It's just sort of like they did it.
You know, 10 years ago I said, it doesn't matter what your company's name. You just do, you know, it doesn't matter.
It's like what happened with the Wii, because like everyone made fun of that name for 6 or 8 months, and now nobody makes fun of it. They may hate the console, but like no one, the name is a dead issue because it's now what it means.
See, my point is always like, Apple, what did they say when somebody came up with the idea and say like, okay, this is our computer company, this is going to be Apple.
Well, that's something that I think is successful despite its name.
Right.
But here, take a look at like is a name that we specifically sat down and said, how can we make it an interesting name that talks about what the gameplay is?
And people get pissed off about it. That only helps us. A lot of people were like, who are these morons? Don't they know this name won't fit on a title page or like all kinds of stuff like that?
In a tweet, actually?
Oh, like people, I mean, people left comments, people left all kinds of stuff. It makes it hard to tweet about it. It really limits what we can say.
That's why we, our next title, it's giant, who was talking about giant robots? Somebody was talking about giant. Our next title is going to be Giant Robot Pornography. Is the working title, and I think we can shorten it to just robot porn or GRP. It has nothing to do with nudity, but everything to do with robots.
So that's part of marketing. Coming up with the name, that was really us.
And so, for that, we sat around for hours, and then he walked in and he looked at the list that we had, and he's like, "You're not going to name it, low altitude. You're going to call it Aaaaa." Because that's option number 5 that you were kidding about. And it was crazy, but he wouldn't let me watch the game until we changed it.
Hey Shane, what were you thinking about work?
Yeah, a while back I was just saying that there's really kind of 2 types of marketing, and you can kind of hint at it, but not really just outright say it. But there's marketing of your company and marketing of your game, and there's times when you're kind of doing both at the same time. As you're doing a press release for a game, you are also doing your company out there. Right. And I also think, like the point you made about the public seeing a name 6 times, I think it also works with press. Like if you start meeting up with the press or talking to them or sending out these emails and start making it more and more personal, then after a few times they're going to say, oh yeah, it's going to register, and they're going to then have more personal feeling back as well.
And that's why you go early and often. And I'm surprised at what the press will pick up, because there was a studio out there that I didn't know about, and they said to us, well, hey, we're doing a press release and we're including a screenshot and a name. And I was shocked. I was like, why would you do this? But no, they got enough press about that, in part because of their previous titles, but that first step will, that's the anchor, so that in subsequent 5 times, people are going to say, oh, I've heard of frozen synapse, and then they go forward. And that's why I think, if I may say so, I think your game, which I've seen, it looks good, right? Why haven't you told the press about it yet?
I've just been too busy.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think that's like the downfall, is like, right now, I have somebody that I'm using a little bit for consulting I'm not farming out my PR and marketing, but I am. It's Carolyn Carnes over at Flashfire Communications. She was at the IGC this year, and they do stuff for Penny Arcade. They do a bunch of different things, and she actually is giving me like kind of a break on price, and is going to give me consulting where I'm going to put together the plan and hand it to her, and she's going to critique it for me.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I am really stingy. I'm just a cheap-ass bastard. Why are you paying for your marketing?
I'm not paying for my marketing. I'm paying to have somebody who I categorically believe knows what she's doing tell me if I'm full of shit or not. Like I'm able to say to somebody that I feel confident saying this person knows what they're doing. I can hand them my plan, and then she is literally she's going to go through and critique it and get that back to me, and then I'm going to change it, and I'm going to do so. I get to climb my learning curve a lot faster, and I get to feel good that I'm not making horrendous mistakes on my short timeline.
That seems like a reasonable plan.
But that's part of the reason that I haven't moved on that yet. I just need to sit down and start working on it, and a lot of that is just like, I sit down in the morning and I'm like, well, I've got these 3 minor things I can do in 10 minutes, and I've got this coding mass that has to be done and I'm right in the middle of, and I've got the marketing PR that I'm not really doing much on. And the first 2 things, a lot gets done on those, and nothing gets done on the marketing PR.
You know, I think marketing and PR is so important that, like I said, I mean, a third of my team is dedicated to PR. I mean, they're not full-time, but they
Well, I mean, the one thing that's interesting that you point out, you're still going to, I think it's important that you climb that learning curve as well on your own and don't sort of outsource, because even with the stuff that we've done, you know, with the experience that I have, Ichiro won't, I mean, we work on every press release together. We sit down together for 2 hours and we'll crank it out. I might write a first draft and send it to him, but nothing leaves without him looking at it, because he has an innate sense of what the voice of Dejobaan is, or what the studio's image is, and it's important that like he looks at that and says, yes, that's consistent, and that's worked well for us to have him, you know, give me his input, and so it's always collaborative, and we definitely. What am I trying to say here? I think there's value in the people who are making the games, you know, being really involved in sort of the marketing of it. And so one anecdotal interesting thing that's happened from that, we've occasionally written press releases about stuff that didn't exist in the game, because we're like, hey, that's a cool idea, let's write it up. And we put the press release out, and then we built it after the fact, because like, it's actually driven our development a couple of times. Like,
that's true. I remember.
I mean, a bunch of stuff like flipping up spectators. We never had flipping up spectators until
this press release isn't exciting enough. What can we add to it? Oh, you can actually flip off people.
Right,
that's a great thing.
Totally made up. It didn't exist in the game for months before it was, you know, months after it was written about. I mean, there were several things we wrote about that never existed.
That's like
half the game. Like, I mean, came after the press release one time. It's perfectly fine. I mean, you know, it forces you to then put it in the game. I don't like it. If no one writes about it, you're like, oh, whatever.
There's a couple things that I've learned so I've talked to a bunch of PR marketing folks over time, because I've been looking to, you know, just learn more as I'm going. Most of the PR firms that you will run into don't know a goddamn thing about this kind of game and marketing it. Like, they are much more, anybody who's up talking at a panel or something generally is used to dealing with larger budgets. They're dealing with people with access already to the press, people who have those relationships. Like, they don't know much about starting from this spot.
You know, you'll be surprised it's not just in this space. I mean, I work for a reasonable sized software company. I work for the MathWorks, if anyone's heard of MATLAB, right? 2,000 employees. We have a PR agency and a PR team. Right? Our PR team's only job is to then work with the marketing managers in the company to source content, hand it off to the PR agency, who goes out and finds an editor who's going to write about it. And the reality is, the PR agencies, even at that level, when they have a big budget and all that, really don't bring much to the table, in my opinion. I mean, they bring a Rolodex, and they basically say, okay, we'll go talk to the editors of, you know, blah 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 magazine.
But they don't have any skin in the game, which makes it very difficult to make it a legitimate.
They don't have any knowledge about us, because they work with 15 different companies. Right. They have some cursory understanding. So it's even worse when you start to talk about being an indie developer, going to these people and say, yeah, I know something about gaming, I've worked with Microsoft.
I should say, I do like your idea. I mean, your answer to my question is you get a mentor, and that's, I think, vitally important. You're probably better off than we are, because you're doing that.
But don't assume that they can do everything for you. They often don't.
Yeah, no, I actually, I made sure that I told her, I said, look, I want to do this. I want your opinion on whether I'm headed in the right directions. Because, like, and the other thing that I've picked up in a couple different spots is, don't go to a PR firm. Do your work yourself if you're in this spot, because, and this kind of keys into something else which I learned from my business advisor, who's from the Small Business Administration. They can, if you want to talk about that, ask me later. They're awesome. But he said, you know what, Scott, you need to be doing your own books. You need to understand how to do your own accounting. And I said, why? And he said, that is because you will get a feel for it, even though it's small scale right now. Later on, you'll know how this looks, what kind of money you spend, what you spend it on, so that later on, when you have 20 people working for you, say, and you come back and somebody shows you something, and you just, you know, you flip open the books, and you look at it and you go, that doesn't look right. And then you have enough knowledge, you have that hunch, you can look at it and say, this isn't correct. I need to dig into this. Somebody needs to look at this. What went wrong here? You know, and you can have that broad basis of knowledge. And so that's why you don't want to trust your PR and marketing to someone else right now. A, because you're an indie and you have cachet, because we're the current thing. Like, you know, we want to build our reps right now while indies are hot, if we can, because after this, like, when indies are a dime a dozen, like, you know, like, indie filmmakers are no longer like, oh my God. Like, in the 90s, though, like, if you were an indie filmmaker, like, oh my God, you were fantastic. that was the spot. Like nobody's showing up like Quentin Tarantino and becoming a Quentin Tarantino much anymore, and that's in part why it's like that time has passed. I think. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Can I throw out a